And let's get right to that breaking news this morning out of Wisconsin. At least 5 people were killed and dozens more were injured after an SUV drove through a crowded holiday parade route in Waukesha.
Now, we want to warn you that some of the video is hard to watch. First, you can see the moment the red SUV actually drove through the parade and into the crowd. We've stopped the video right before the impact. And then this was the aftermath. You can see confusion and chaos as people screamed, trying to locate family members and friends. Let's listen to how a business owner near the parade described the scene.
We were just, using towels and things to help with trying to stop the bleeding and then there was a lot of, there was a number of band members who came in and they were in a very highly emotional state.
Now, as police work to piece together this tragedy, we're actually going to hear from someone who was there. We're joined now by Scott Greger, who was at the parade last night. Hopefully we have Scott here with us. Hopefully, Scott, you can hear us. Hey there, Scott. I'm so sorry for what you had to go through, for what you saw. First off, just how are you doing this morning?
Doing okay. Did not sleep very well this past evening. Just trying to make sure that all of the people that we know are safe. Thankfully, we are good friends with the band director that was one of the first impacted. Thankfully, she is personally safe, and we're just waiting to hear on the other band members as well.
Oh, absolutely. We're so happy to hear that about her. So walk us through what happened. Explain to us, if you can, kind of where you were along this parade route and what did you see?
Sure. So we actually, the picture you have right on the screen, we were right near that. It's called the 5 Points, and that is where 5 major streets converge, is kind of the center of the downtown. We were sitting across one of the streets that had been blocked off, and I had noticed a couple of police vehicles that were behind us, and didn't think much of it, just wondering what was going on, especially given the fact that we had so many people downtown for the parade. I went through with the intersection behind us at a pretty high rate of speed, but wasn't sure what was going on. Definitely perked up as far as just kind of being situationally aware of that. And we continued watching the parade. The dancing grannies, which is always a favorite part of, went through, and a few other units went through, when all of a sudden a red SUV barreling very, very high rate of speed came down along the left side of one of the units, struck a pedestrian directly across from us, and continued on down the parade route, running into the back of a float that had just passed by. And after that, we were just trying to make sure that our family was safe and trying to get ourselves out of the situation as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. So you're saying that you noticed that police presence prior to actually seeing the SUV in the area? That's
correct. Yeah, I heard a couple of police vehicles that prior to seeing the SUV coming down the parade route.
Absolutely. And how's your community doing this morning?
We're hurting. I think the biggest impact, the number of kids, obviously it was a Christmas parade and everyone's excited to see that. And it was nearing the end of the parade route. Santa was within moments of coming down the parade route, and everyone was very excited for that and seeing the end. And this happened. So a lot of children, I really just ask people to pray for our community. Please pray for the students. Both my wife and I are educators, and that's going to be a severe and major impact on our students, and trying to help them walk through this journey as educators.
Absolutely. Scott Greger, thank you for your time this morning. We're thinking about you and your community, giving you those prayers. I know you've lived there for most of your life, so thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Thank you so much.
Now, for the latest on what happened in the investigation, let's bring in NBC News correspondent Megan Fitzgerald. So, Megan, you're at a children's hospital in Milwaukee where some victims are being treated. This tragedy happened in suburban Milwaukee. What more can you tell us about what happened and what witnesses are saying?
Well, you know, I can tell you that just as Scott was saying, this is something that this community looks forward to every year. This Christmas parade didn't happen last year because of the pandemic. So people were excited to be out there and waiting to see Santa when all of a sudden this SUV comes plowing down the middle of this parade, taking out anyone in its path. I want you to listen to what one eyewitness told us earlier.
Must have been going, I mean, at least 40 to 50 miles an hour, just came through. And I saw, I mean, maybe 3 people right in front of me get hit. I saw people right away run to the people that were hit and start doing CPR. And I saw people on the ground, there's blood. And it was really bad.
Yeah, so there are a great deal of people that did walk away from this incident without injury, but you've got to imagine the trauma that's setting in. I mean, young children excited to see Santa and instead have to see this tragedy unfold before their eyes, Joe.
So many people are wondering why this happened. So, Megan, what do we know about the driver of the SUV? I understand police do have a person of interest in custody, right?
That's absolutely right. So there is a person of interest in custody. They're not looking for anyone else. What law enforcement authorities are telling us at this hour is that this person was likely fleeing another incident that was related to some sort of a knife incident when they took off at a high rate of speed, just plowing through the middle of this parade. I want you to listen to what law enforcement had to say about this.
We're no longer looking for a suspect vehicle. We do have a person of interest in custody at the moment, but this is still a very fluid investigation.
So a lot of information here that we are waiting for, a lot of unanswered questions. But what we do know, what NBC News has confirmed, is that law enforcement officials tell us that this is not connected to terrorism and this is not in retaliation to the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict, Joe.
And what about the victims? What's the information we have on them right now? And how about the many people who were injured? How are they doing?
So what we know, according to the Children's Hospital behind me here, 15 patients have been admitted here at least. We know more than 40 others have been injured. They're being treated at area hospitals. And right now, the death toll is at 5. Unfortunately, it's very possible that that number could rise throughout the day, as we know that there are several people in critical condition. I want to read you also, just coming in, this statement from the Archdiocese in this area. They say, quote, "Among the injured are one of our Catholic priests, as well as multiple parishioners and Catholic school children. Please join us in prayer for all those involved, their families, and those who are traumatized from witnessing this horrible scene." And that's exactly what it is. It's trauma for this community, excited to ring in the holiday season with Thanksgiving just days away, and now they are left mourning this morning. Joe?
We're thinking of all those families. Megan Fitzgerald reporting from Wisconsin. Thank you. This morning in Georgia, prosecutors and defense attorneys will deliver closing arguments in the trial of 3 white men accused of chasing down and killing Ahmaud Arbery. This follows 10 days of testimony, including last week's surprise appearance on the witness stand by defendant Travis McMichael. NBC News correspondent Cal Perry joins us now from Brunswick. So, Cal, big day in this trial as lawyers prepare to make their final cases to the jury, which is a predominantly white jury. So what can we expect, and what kind of message will both sides hope to get across to the jurors?
Look, I think from the prosecution, it's going to be more of what we heard last week. We saw the prosecutor who was able really to cut into the testimony from Travis McMichael. Travis McMichael, the man who actually pulled the trigger on that shotgun that killed Ahmaud Arbery. We saw her thundering away and able to get him to admit basically that there was no threat from Arbery, that he didn't say anything as he was being pursued. So I think you can expect more of the same on that front. Now, from the defense, that remains to be seen. We've heard a lot from this one defense attorney, Goff. He's been making a lot of outrageous comments. It'll be interesting to see if there are more motions or if we just hear closing statements from the defense. But certainly it seems like they have the most work to be done. Joe?
So, Cal, this all comes just days after we got the verdict in that other high-profile case. Kyle Rittenhouse was cleared of all charges in the Kenosha killings after claiming self-defense. The 2 cases are quite different, but is that verdict in Wisconsin casting a shadow where you are in Georgia?
Yeah, I think there's no question that sort of people are aware of that verdict. There was a concern here on the ground that the two could affect each other. I don't think that's the case. We will see closings again today. We have seen these sort of outrageous, outlandish comments from this one defense attorney, Goff, and I think that is what is hanging over a lot of this. Last week, there was a lot of talk again about black pastors. We had these comments made by Goff, and I think that is hanging over certainly a trial that already has so many shades of race to it, only being added to. Certainly, when you sort of look at the Rittenhouse case, that is where it would come into play. But I think people here are focusing on the closing and then giving it to the jury certainly before Thanksgiving, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, so what is the mood for the Arbery family right now ahead of the jury deliberations? What's their mood?
You know, we heard from the mother of Ahmaud Arbery last week. She's been sitting in the courtroom throughout the trial, and she said that there was actually floated from the prosecutors the idea of some kind of plea agreement. Now, for their part, the defense teams for the defendants are saying that that was not true. But certainly, if there is any optimism, I think you can read it in those statements. Joe?
All right, Cal Perry, we know to keep an eye on it. Thanks so much.
Turning now to the race to get more booster shots in the arms of Americans ahead of the holiday season. The CDC and the FDA have now authorized Pfizer and Moderna boosters for all vaccinated adults. The move comes as several states see an increase in COVID cases just as temperatures drop and people move indoors. NBC News Now correspondent Dasha Burns has the latest.
After more than a year and a half of virtual hugs, millions of Americans are preparing to embrace family and friends in person this Thanksgiving.
From the Biden family to yours, we wish you a happy Thanksgiving.
According to a Monmouth University poll, 2/3 of Americans are ditching the digital gatherings and plan to have a more traditional celebration. Large parties inside family homes, passing plates at the dinner table, clinking glasses. The first indoor holiday to look more like the pre-pandemic days. And the TSA expects travel to match, rebounding back to pre-COVID levels. But we're not yet in a post-COVID world. Infections are increasing again. A 20% rise in cases across the country over the last 2 weeks. The national vaccination rate now at 59%. But 62 million eligible Americans still haven't gotten the shot. Amid the rise in cases and the upcoming holiday, the FDA and CDC cleared the way for Pfizer and Moderna booster shots for all U.S. adults on Friday, recommending it for those over 50.
We have 11 yeses and 0 nos.
30 million Americans have already received a booster shot, but mixed messages during the initial rollout left others uncertain.
CDC speaks Latin. I can't figure out who's eligible. If you were vaccinated more than 6 months ago, now is the time and go get that booster.
A number of states had already authorized booster shots for all adults before the FDA and CDC's approval. Colorado and New Mexico going a step further with executive orders urging fully vaccinated adults to get boosters after both states saw significant increases in COVID infections and hospitalizations.
For folks sitting here watching right now thinking, should I get a booster? What is your medical advice?
Everyone over the age of 18 really should consider getting a booster. And then if you are above the age of 65, there is no question in my mind that this feels like it's a high priority and that even as early as today, you should try to find out where to get a booster.
With experts suggesting boosters could become annual or even biannual, what it means to be fully vaccinated could change.
I think that if you fast forward even 6 months, we will likely need that booster to show that we completed the series. So this definition of fully immunized could evolve, and I think it will evolve.
All right, our thanks to Dasha Burns for that report.
Let's bring in Dr. Amish Adalja, a senior scholar at the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security. Good morning to you, Doctor. So Dr. Fauci gave some advice yesterday on how to celebrate the holidays safely. Here's what he had to say.
My recommendations to Americans to celebrate safely is get vaccinated as soon as you can. Obviously, if you're not vaccinated, you're in a situation where you're more vulnerable to getting infected. But for the people who are vaccinated, the people who can get boosted, enjoy your holiday season with your family, indoors, grandparents, children, do it. But be aware that when you are in a situation where you are traveling, for example, and you are in an indoor congregate setting and you don't know the vaccination status of people, you need to wear a mask.
Now, Dr. Fauci also added fully vaccinated people can celebrate the holiday without a mask. So what do you make of all his advice, and how concerned are you we could see a big rise in COVID cases after the Thanksgiving holiday?
I agree with what Dr. Fauci said. If you're a fully vaccinated person and you're interacting with other fully vaccinated individuals, I think you can enjoy Thanksgiving as if it was 2019. But what the concern is that there's unvaccinated individuals, and they're going to gather on Thanksgiving just like vaccinated individuals will. And we will likely see an increase in transmission with those high-risk indoor settings amongst the unvaccinated, especially as it's colder and people can't have their Thanksgiving outdoors. Remember, we're always going to have cases. It's the key thing is keeping the cases away from high-risk individuals so they don't end up in the hospitals and our hospitals go into crisis again. That's the key thing, is making sure those high-risk people are vaccinated.
Now, President Biden's vaccination mandate for federal workers goes into effect today, impacting about 4 million employees. We've seen how effective mandates like these can be, especially here where we are in New York. So what can we expect from this one as it finally goes into effect?
What we will see is more federal workers vaccinated, and I think this is something that we want to encourage. If you're the federal government and you're trying to make sure that your workforce is resilient, that your workplaces are safe, and that you can move on from the pandemic, making vaccination a condition of employment is something many employers should be doing. And I think the federal government made the right decision here. Hopefully more companies will do this as well. There is an OSHA mandate that's a little bit troubled and stalled, but I think in general, the idea of businesses thinking about vaccination as a way to be able to operate during a pandemic is a great one, and I think it makes a lot of sense.
Doctor, over the weekend, the U.S. death toll for COVID 2021 officially passed last year's numbers. This is despite the fact we have 3 effective vaccines available to pretty much everyone. So what does that tell us about how we handled COVID this year, and what are your hopes that we're going to do a better job of containing COVID now in 2022?
To me, it's mind-boggling that we have a higher death toll when we've got 3 effective vaccines, effective treatments. And it tells you that this is actually willful. This is actually self-inflicted because many of those deaths are vaccine preventable. And I don't think any of us thought we would be in a situation where people would shun a vaccine that has been proven safe and effective and really change the way a person handles COVID-19. And I think this really speaks to the fact that we're going to have difficulties getting that group of people, those 60 million plus Americans who are not vaccinated. They are getting increasingly dug in, and the longer they stay that way, the more limbo we're going to be in with this pandemic.
Especially as we head into these winter months. All right, Dr. Ahmaud Arbery, as always, thank you so much.
As we were just talking about with Dr. Adalja, the federal vaccine mandate is going into effect just as the start of the busy holiday travel season gets underway. That means all TSA employees must be vaccinated in order to work. And as many people prepare to travel for the first time since the beginning of the pandemic, they could face some long lines at airports. MSNBC anchor Yasmin Vasugian joins us now from LaGuardia Airport in New York City. Yasmin, good morning. So let's start with this mandate and specifically the TSA. How many TSA workers have been vaccinated? Are they going to have enough staff to keep those lines down, or are a lot of them going to have to sit out because they are not vaccinated?
Short answer is yes. Secretary Buttigieg was actually on the Meet the Press yesterday telling our colleague Chuck Todd that it's going to be just fine. There's not going to be any backups. 90% of TSA, it seems at this point, are actually vaccinated. So they're prepared. They're ready for the busy holiday season. Honestly, you can't tell by looking behind me because it looks fairly quiet. But just around the corner here, Savannah, you see the security lines. It stretches the entire length of this terminal. I'm not kidding. It's incredibly busy just this morning on a Monday morning on this busy Thanksgiving week. And you look at the numbers because they're going to need all the help they can get. 53.4 million people are going to be traveling, 48 million of those by car, 4.2, excuse me, by air. That's double what we saw last year. It's looking like these are pre-pandemic numbers. So, of course, airports are going to have to be prepared and ready to be inundated with a lot of folks traveling over the Thanksgiving holiday. Of course, people wanting to get back together with their families, having missed out last year because of this pandemic. And as I said, the lines are already forming and people getting ready to go. And I will say some of the tips that we are getting from folks is arrive early. If you're flying domestic, get here 2 hours early. If you're flying international, 3 hours because of those security lines, Savannah.
Oh, wow. That's definitely a tip. Also, those numbers on the roads. I can imagine what traffic is going to look like. And we know what gas prices have been like. Now, Yasmin, also unrelated to the crowds right now, there was a really scary incident this weekend at Atlanta's airport. A weapon was accidentally discharged at a TSA checkpoint. What are police saying about the incident? And are other airports increasing their security as a result of this incident?
Yeah, so I was on air when this news broke. An individual, Kenny Wells, 42 years of age, was going through TSA. They screened his bag. They saw something in his bag. They took him aside to search his bag, asked him not to touch his belongings. When they opened up his bag, he reached for his firearm, and it accidentally, as the airport authorities are telling us, discharged. At that point, the individual took his firearm and ran out of the airport. So he has yet to be found or apprehended. But of course, that airport was on lockdown for over an hour. There was extreme chaos at the airport. Folks didn't necessarily know what was happening. I spoke to an individual who was there who kind of, experienced all of it and said he had seen some folks being trampled. A young girl was trampled. She was subsequently fine, but nonetheless, it was certainly a chaotic situation for over 60 minutes or so when all of it took place. At this point, though, of course, security folks are on high alert across all airports across the country heading into the holiday season, Savannah.
Absolutely. All right, Yasmin Vasugian, thank you so much.
Of course, the weather is on everyone's mind as we prepare for this big travel week. So let's get a check on your morning news now. Weather.
That's right. Bill Cairns is with us with the latest on holiday weather concerns this week. Hi, Bill. Good morning. How's it looking?
Hey, good Monday morning. I mean, as far as Thanksgiving travel goes, it's like historically there's always a huge storm because it's kind of that time of year we're transitioning into like winter. But this year, I mean, it's not bad at all. I mean, I'm talking about light rain and temperatures, getting cold. So if that's the worst of it, we're good. So the light rain is exiting off the East Coast early today. It's so light, I don't think it's going to cause many airport delays at all. Obviously, when the roads are wet, it's a little slower. And there is a cold blast of air behind this, and that'll probably be, as far as weather stories go, one of the bigger ones leading up to Thanksgiving. The wind chills this morning, it feels like winter. Chicago 9, Minneapolis 8, Green Bay 6. So this is the coldest air of the season that we've seen yet. And of course, when the cold air goes over the Great Lakes this time of year, we will get some lake effect snow. But this isn't going to be a big, huge lake effect snow event either. So even the snow towns are not going to get walloped like they can, especially late November and December. And tomorrow morning, bundle up in the Northeast all the way down to D.C. Wind chills will be in the 20s. So that's definitely winter coats, hat, and gloves for most people. So the forecast for today, not bad. Pretty great weather coast to coast for traveling. All of the major airport hubs are looking good. It'll be a little windy in a few spots that could cause some delays, say like in Atlanta. Chicago's cold, as we mentioned, and that rain will exit the Northeast. Tuesday, thumbs up across the nation. There's a little bit of rain and snow showers in areas of the Rockies, but overall pretty good. And then the big day, they call it the busiest travel day of the year, is Wednesday. And the weather map, can't complain, guys. The East Coast is clear. It's chilly, but it's no rain or snow. Just a little weak storm system in the west. And as far as all of our airports go, maybe some minor delays or maybe minor to moderate because of windy conditions in Denver, Chicago, Detroit. But there's a lot of green in all these major airport hubs. So at least the weather won't be the cause of the delay. Volume could be a different story.
Yeah. Bill can't take credit for your family or anything that happens there, but the weather will be good. All right. Thank you, Bill.
Looks good.
Yeah.
Good news. See you next hour. Thank you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.